ជំរាបសួរសិស្សានុសិស្សអ្នកគ្រូលោកគ្រូនិងអាណាព្យាបាលអ្នកទាំងអស់គ្នាដែលមើលវីដេអូនេះ Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Asian Hope Podcast. My name is Benedict.
And my name's Lilith.
Here with us today is Mr. and Mrs. Thomas.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
It's so great to have you with us today. Thank you for joining us for episode 2 of our podcast.
You're
We're
welcome.
excited. Thank you for inviting us.
So the theme today is businesses that build bridges. Over to Benedict.
All right, so many of our students today, they are interested in starting their own business. And we heard that you have a property business back in England.
Yeah.
So we wanted to know the story behind your business and how it came to be. And we also wanted to know the reason you guys created that business, because I've heard that it's not just a normal property business, it's a property business aimed at ex-convicts or like controversial people that have a controversial past that are finding it hard to find housing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we didn't really intentionally set out to start a business. We'd been married about 5 years and we'd just come back from teaching in Bangladesh and we sold our house, and so we had a little bit of cash that we wanted to invest. We didn't want to just waste and fritter it away. We had a bit of spare cash. So we were thinking of what can we do to invest this money. So I come from the northern part of England where house prices are quite cheap. And we thought we could put some of the money towards a mortgage to buy a house and then rent it out. And the idea being years later, we would have that property. So that's how it all started, really. God, I think, was planting a seed. And we had no thoughts that it would become a business, no thoughts that we would even make money on a monthly basis. So that's how it all started.
So it just blossomed into...
Yeah. So over the years, over 3 years, we ended up buying 3 places up in Yorkshire in Natalie's hometown, which the prices were about probably half to a third of what they were down south where we were living. And so we were using an agent. And so we didn't really have an idea about it, apart from it was, like Natalie said, to have a long-term opportunity to raise money in the future, you see. And so what happened then was after 3 years, we had decided to remortgage those properties to raise some capital. And so we had some money. So we bought a shop in a local town near us. And we wanted to move into the shop to convert it into a house. And in the meantime, we were going to let out our own house. So we put an advert in the paper for it. And we had a gentleman come around. Now, I was at work and Natalie was at home. And this pirate-looking guy, I don't want to be too specific because he'll know who I'm talking about if he ever sees this, turns up at the door wanting to rent our house. And Natalie, for me, I'm thinking, no chance. But I met him later on. He's a gentle giant, absolutely lovely guy, full of tattoos, full of earrings, full of like war wounds and stuff like that. So wears the tricorn hat and the rest of it. But an absolute gentleman.
But divorced, he had an older kid who he wanted to rent with, plus he had a sister who was pregnant and about to give birth. So he was very different, and he'd been really trying to try and rent a house, and he'd been turned down by a lot of people because they just thought he looked like a risk and they would not get their monthly rent. Whereas I just saw this person who needed somewhere. He was the first person to phone up. He looked around the house, really liked it, wanted it. So I thought, let's give him a chance. Yeah. We'll see how it goes.
He's one of my really special friends now.
Yeah.
He's an awesome man. And what's more, that he had links to the church back then, but not very strong links. He'd been rejected by church because of the way he lived his life. But through basically people, not just us, but people giving him time of day, showing him love, he actually came back to the church. And now I would say probably, 15 years later, he's actually on the eldership team of a large church in a local town, which is amazing, and it's just lovely. And so anyway, it was God's direction really to send him to us. And through that, we realised that there was an absolute need for people who marginalised, people on the fringes, people who no other landlords would touch with a barge pole. So as we built up our property portfolio over the next sort of 10, 15 years, we started thinking, actually, this is something that we can, is a ministry that we can have. So that's really where it started.
So, Mrs. Thomas, how does your faith integrate with your mission to provide those in need of housing? And in what ways do you integrate your Christian values into your business practices and interactions with tenants?
Okay. So I think one of the premises that we should all understand as Christians is that Psalm 24 says, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And I remember people asking me about this before when we were here, and saying that absolutely it's not our business. It's something that God has blessed us with, and we don't know how it's come about, but the earth is the Lord's. So we always say that everything we have is God's. It's God's business. We're just like the managers for it, okay? Now, it's quite a strong biblical principle, okay? And so we believe that quite strongly. We also believe quite strongly, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to become rich or anything, but it means that we give God, we just say, this is God's. We want to seek his face. We want to seek his direction. And therefore, he will meet our needs, not our wants, but our needs. And but also in the same time, he will bless his people. And he will use us to bless other people, which is such an awesome privilege. Yeah. I don't know if that fully answers your question, but...
It does.
Okay.
It does.
All of this is happening. You managing the house, you meeting these people. All this is happening while you guys are also going back and forth in Cambodia as well.
Yeah.
So you guys are not only teaching, you're not only like managing a school, you're also doing this property business as well. So that must be, I mean, it sounds hectic.
Yeah.
It's sort of ticking along, okay. Probably time that we go back and Graham certainly spend time with the tenants and looking and checking on the houses. But basically, when we came to Cambodia, we explained very clearly to our tenants that we were going to be out of the country for 3 years, and we made sure that they knew how to contact us, that Graham checks emails and messages every day. Also, we've got some agencies involved with some of the properties, so we communicate with the agencies. And then our tenant who we were telling you about previously, the big guy with the tattoos and piercings, he is a really good friend, and he connects with us on a regular basis, and he helps us and goes and reminds some tenants if they're not paying the rent, and goes and sorts out issues and problems with tenants. He actually knows our tenants really well, and they know him. So we've got him, and he's a real blessing and someone who we know we can rely on. So it's really, I think, again, God putting people in place to help us whilst we're here doing something a bit different.
So a lot of team effort.
Exactly, it is.
And I have to say, if I would have thought that leaving a business for 3 years is a recipe for disaster. But because we just say, well, this is God's business. If he wants it to survive, he's going to have to make it survive. Do you know what I mean?
Amen.
And so we look back on it, and when we left last time, we knew it was absolutely the right time to go back for lots of reasons, which we might go into. But as Natalie said, now and again, it needs a little bit of servicing and financing and all that sort of thing, and touching base with the tenants again and making sure things are going. But I just God, to God be the glory. Honestly, we're so glad.
You just really have to put a lot of faith.
Absolutely.
In the Lord for this
that's
one.
right. If you believe it's the right thing that God wants you to do, then you say, well, I'm inadequate. I'm not a professional business trained person. Neither of us are. But God gives you wisdom. He gives you ability. He gives you common sense and stuff like that, and he expects you to use the things he gives you for his glory, and his expansion of his kingdom,
Right. Yeah.
It's awesome. Yep.
What are some challenges you faced in operating a property business, especially while also working in Cambodia?
I think probably we've sort of touched on that a little bit about I would say my advice would be, if you know that things are going to change in the future, be really proactive about it. Like, for example, we couldn't have, and I have to say, God is awesome. he knew about the financial crash. He knew about the interest rate changes years, like probably thousands of years before they actually happened. He knew that while we were back in the UK last time, which was like 3 years ago, we needed to do something about our financing, because he knew when it was, I don't know if you know about the financial issues that happened like 3 years ago, when interest rates went from like 0.5% or 0.25%, borrowing money interest. So we've got over £500,000 worth of debt, okay? It's a lot of debt. And in terms of buying houses. And so even 1% can put your costs up hugely when you're paying the interest, yeah? So God was aware of this before we went back to the UK. And he put into our minds without, just saying, now's a good time to refinance everything, okay? So we spent a lot of time in those 2 years we were back in the UK last time refinancing stuff. If we hadn't done that, honestly, we could not afford to be here. We would have been absolutely snowed under with extra debt, because the interest rates went from like 1 or 2% to the punter up to about 8%. Now that you're talking about £700 or £800 an extra per property in interest payments, and God basically shielded us from that. Okay, so you do have to sort of be aware of the way the world's working, be aware of financial markets, be aware of like tenants who might not be the most reliable people, and actually put things into place, like Natalie was saying about getting someone in there to just go and gently remind somebody and stuff like that. So yeah, I think there's a little bit of extra information to that. Yeah.
So what brought you to Cambodia when you already have like such a thriving business?
So we are adventurous people anyway, and we're really open to change and new things, new experiences. And when Annalise and Rafi, our children, were at an age where we felt we could relocate with them, we just wanted them to experience life in a different country, not to think that, this is the way kids are all over the world. I think kids in England are very privileged. They have free education, free health, and I think it comes very easy to them. And we just wanted our kids to see that actually that is not the case for everyone. The world is a big place and things are different. So we wanted our children to experience a different country, a different the life that other children experience. And then for us, we feel passionate about education, and through education reaching children of all ages. And we just really loved this organisation and how it reaches Cambodians at all different social levels. And we also had contact with, Miss Pam and Mr. Gordon. We knew them back in Bangladesh, so we worked at the same school as them, so that we had those connections. So lots of reasons, really.
Yep.
I think that's what draws you guys to Asian Hope as well, with the different like students, because you said there's different age class, and I can see that.
Yeah.
There's students that are well off, and then there's our students that are not from, not like in an okay background.
Yeah.
And then I think there's teachers that are from different countries all over the world. So different cultures, different classes are in this one school. I mean, it does create clash, but it does create diversity, and it does give you a more wider perspective of the world around you.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's in a school, but it does share pieces of different worlds and different views.
And we definitely notice when we go back to the UK how like blinkered a lot of the pupils are there, and even society in general. So for example, even back to the business, I get the local authority coming to me and saying, there's a drop in your garden of 500 millimeters and you need to put a fence up because it's dangerous. People could fall off that. And I'm going, you come to Cambodia and then try and be a health and safety officer in Cambodia, you'd have a great
Walk
time.
on the pavements and the streets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's quite funny. And so I said to this guy, actually wrote to this guy who told me I need to do some improvements on this house because there were some dangerous things about it, like this step and the rest of it. And I said, honestly, you should come to Cambodia and see what you can do there, because Yeah, and so that is just opening your eyes to the way that the world works, and it's just awesome. Yeah, it's a real blessing actually. Yeah, and we've been blessed by it. We've loved it, and so yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. So I think besides that point, your business, it like when looking back, I heard you thinking about, I think the pirate guy that you talked about.
Yeah.
He must have faced like a lot of prejudice.
Yeah.
And like not, I mean, besides him going on a hard, wait, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to pick up my
Yeah,
word
yeah.
here.
Yeah.
But so your the pirate guy, he must be facing a lot of prejudice. He must be having a hard time in his life. And all of a sudden, when you guys help, it switched his life around. He's doing these good things.
Yeah.
Are there other stories?
Yeah.
Or
I mean, we've been doing this such a long time now, 21 years, I think. 21 years, probably 18 years specifically making our homes and places available for people. So we've got currently ex-convicts, drug addicts, ex-drug addicts, alcoholics, young single mothers, families like, all, you basically think the sort of rainbow of life, basically. And a lot of people, a lot of landlords and a lot of agencies won't touch these people with a barge pole. They're just too much of a risk, okay? Because in terms of damaging property, and so we've had close relatives, saying to us, "Why are you doing that?" I've had policemen phoning me up at 2:00 in the morning and saying, "Your tenant's doing this, and if you don't sort her out, she's going to get an ASBO." An ASBO in the UK is called an antisocial behaviour order, and they get a tag around their leg, and they're not allowed out at certain times of the day. And I had to go around there at 2:00 in the morning and say, I'm not going to say her name, but what are you doing? She was like a 19, 20-year-old single mother who, by the way, came to probably our third or fourth house when I just refurbished the place. And she was this young girl who was heavily pregnant, as far as I remember. Either she'd heavily pregnant or had a child already, and turned up and like, she was the first person to view the house. So I just said, okay, she seemed a nice girl, and she wasn't like, or whatever, and she's nice. So anyway, I thought, well, everybody has hard times in life, makes mistakes. You can't judge them for that. And so at the end of me showing around the house, she just said, well, okay, walked out. And I just said, are you interested in the house? And she said, what, you'll really let me have it? And I said, if you want it, you can have it. And she was almost in tears. It was really, really lovely. And so that sort of really challenged me as well about seeing beyond. Now, she's the one who the police were phoning me up at 3:00 in the morning and that sort of thing. Okay, she fell out with neighbours both sides. She chucked bricks through her neighbours' car windscreens, that sort of thing. She had a young daughter as well, and so there was threats to take this girl away. But I have to say, she's not my tenant any longer. But the reason is because she's now in a long-term permanent relationship with her daughter's about 11 or 12 years old. She went to college, got an education, became a manager in a local cinema, met this guy, really lovely guy. I got to know them quite well. And her life is being transformed. I'm not saying we're going to take any credit for it, but I think that God just expects us to love people and give people a chance, and then he does the work. And I think that we have to be willing to sort of step out of this isn't safe. And I say, so prejudice, in terms of prejudice, people saying to us, why didn't you... I mean, you can tell the story about what you were told, yeah?
Yeah, just family saying, oh, how come you're not getting tenants like my friend who's got tenants who are really lovely, they look after the house, they pay more rent, you could ask for more rent, you're not asking enough, that's why sometimes the houses are getting trashed, and really getting a lot of criticism for the kind of people who we were allowing into our houses. But you just have to stay firm if you believe it's right with God, even though you might face criticism and people not liking what you're doing. You just have to say, fix your eyes on Jesus, and he will see you through it. Yeah. Just God gives you the strength to get through those situations. It can be quite frustrating, and sometimes it takes. I think this person now has realised actually probably what we're doing is a good thing, and but it's taken a long time for them to realise that and see that.
Can I
So
read
we
this?
just have to be
Yes,
patient.
yes,
Sure. It's just it's very relevant. Okay, so this is from James. It's James chapter 1. It says, "Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this," and this is one of our guiding principles. This is the religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless: to look after orphans and widows in their distress, and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. So we could be polluted by the world and saying, oh, yeah, we'll change the way we'll run our business because we can make more money, or we get a bad reputation and that. And then basically it runs on to chapter 2 of James, and it says, my brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but say to the poor man, you stand there or sit on the floor by my feet. I have not discriminated among. Have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor. So again, that's a really powerful challenge to us as business owners, if you like, that God gives us these things because he wants us not to show favoritism to people who, like can afford the rent and who look after our house, but to people who need the break and need the love and need the opportunity.
Your story, it's very similar to, I think, Jesus and the tax collector and also the Good Samaritan. And I think how God turned Saul into Paul as well. It's really your mission, or your business is also very reflective of who you are as a Christian as well.
Yeah, well, we're very driven we love Bible stories. We love Christian testimony, and we think it's so powerful. And so, we are guided by those principles, by biblical principles and principles of other people who have done things before us as well, and greater, So absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
So finally, what advice would you have for those who are keen to combine business with social impact? What key principles or values should guide their efforts?
I think for us, we never set out to make loads of money. Money just was not something that guided us, and we were thinking more in terms of where God wants us, thinking about other people. So not really thinking about ourselves, but being outward thinking, and we've always thought, how can we help people? What can we do for other people? So, and also thinking about in terms of store your treasures in heaven. So don't think, what can I get? How much money can I get? But actually, how can I help other people? And through doing this, how can we be a support to others? So I would definitely, when you run a business, you definitely need to make money in order to survive, to have shelter, food, clothes, and God will provide if it's the right thing. But we never set out to make millions, to make money just doesn't motivate us. What motivates us is to be there for other people.
And then purely from a business perspective, a lot of business people think that it's all about making money quickly, get rich quick. But good business is all about having a product or having a service, the best that you can offer. And then, and if people want to buy that product and it's the right price, then people will buy it. And then naturally you will make money. So if you think about, I've got to get a business that'll make lots of money, you're getting the wrong way round about it. You need to be thinking, I need to find out what I'm good at, what service can I provide, what product can I provide, and then I need to find a good market for it. And then if it's right, you will make money.
And also, is there a need for that product? Like housing, there's an absolute desperate need in England for housing. So many people need housing. So there has to be a demand.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think that's in terms of just business, pure business advice, that would be it. You need to find something that people need or want, and then basically provide the best version of it, and then provide it at a price where people can afford it. It's like the more you can sell. Our houses are probably maybe 20% lower in terms of rent than a lot of properties, and that's one of the reasons why one of the reasons why they're nearly always occupied. And I have friends, people I know, who sometimes have vacancies for months and months and months. And so I think that's the thing. So there's one other little principle which I often say, and I think in terms of just business again, is this, and it just goes like this: own more than you owe. And that basically means that you don't take out huge amounts of money to borrow things to buy flashy cars just to show your business off, or pay for huge advertising, which is never going to recover the money. Okay, so if you're going to start something up, work hard to earn some cash, earn some money behind you, and then start small. But if, for example, if you buy a house, you own the house, and if everything goes wrong, then you can still sell the house. So you actually still own more than you owe. But a lot of people go into business and they end up paying over the odds for a lot of stuff, buying a lot of equipment and stuff that will never hold its value. And it's possible to do that in all businesses, actually. But that's just like a little financial tip as well. Yeah.
Do you have any goals for do you have any future goals for your property business?
That's an interesting one, because it's like when it's God's business, you just have to say, like, God will direct us, we hope still.
I mean, we have ideas, and we talk about, we always like to have a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan, and even maybe it will just get passed on to Annalise and Rafi, our children, or it will become a family business as they're getting older and interested in it. Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah. We just the one thing that we love about our life is that we're always excited about what God's got for us next. Yeah. And we've lived our lives like that all the time. And so, in the same way I say God owns the cattle on 1,000 hills and everything belongs to God, our lives belong to God as well. And so, we've never regretted anything that we've done, because God's always made life exciting, And I say, put God first, seek ye first the kingdom of God, put your life in His hands, and then He will give you an awesome, awesome life. You might not be wealthy, you might not have. You might look at other people and go, I wish I was doing that. But you will always look back and say, I'm so glad that I followed God's path for my life. Yeah.
Do you think God gave you any signs to start this business?
Not really. I think He prompted us to buy the first two. He gave us the opportunity. Now we could go back and point to lots of things since we were married where God stopped us doing things. Like He stopped us selling our first house. When we first went to Bangladesh, we were up for selling our first house, and God made it almost impossible for us to do that. I could tell you the long story, but it's too long. And so we ended up renting it out instead. We never even considered renting it. Yes. So we rented it out. Literally, while we were in Bangladesh for 3 years, the house doubled in price. So if we'd gone back to the UK with a small amount of money that we'd sold our house for, we would have never been able to buy a house. And God enabled us to start with capital. So then we moved to Cornwall and bought a house. And then we had this extra cash, which Natalie mentioned, okay? So then we could start looking into. So we just look back at the way that God has sort of managed things for us. By, when we went to Bangladesh, we were thinking, what do we do? What do we do? Okay, we just keep, I would say, put the sail up and let God be the wind. Do you know what I mean?
Let Jesus take the wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the answer to your question. Yeah.
All right. So I think thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas, for letting us interview you today. You have been amazing guests, and your story with us is very interesting as well. I hope many students in Asian Hope get inspired by their story and journey and put initiative into their own businesses and lives as well. So, yes, thank you very much.
God bless you. Thank you so much for what you're doing as well.
To be here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. God bless you. See you.
Okay.
Bye.
So, that's another episode of Asian Hope Podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.